The Detroit Lions escaped week one of their NFL campaign with a narrow victory over the Los Angeles Rams, a team that is expected to go to the playoffs, a team that is expected to potentially compete for their division, and a football team that took the Lions to within 1 point of victory just a few months ago in the wild card round. Now, there's a lot of people coming away from this game with negative takeaways. A lot of people saying that the pass defense isn't improved enough, that the pass rush didn't do enough either, that the run defense, in fact, took a step back from where they were a season ago. Now, while a lot of this is potential overreaction by the fan base, and I, in fact, believe the Lions improved quite significantly on the defensive side of the ball according to last night's play, it's also very worthy of note that the Detroit Lions were without two key starters last night. That being, of course, defensive tackle DJ Reader, as well as safety and starting secondary member of Ifeatu Melifonwu. Two players that very well could have turned the tide into a much larger margin of victory last night, as well as two players that, if healthy, will be massive upgrades and massive playmakers for this Detroit Lions team as we move forward through the NFL season. Now, before we start talking about those two, let's take a look at last night's game. Let's take a look at week one of Sunday Night Football and talk about whether or not the Detroit Lions defense was truly that awful, or if the expectations might have just been a little bit too high to start the season. Now, the Detroit Lions week one defense overall played very well. They allowed Matthew Stafford to pass 34 of 49 for 317 yards and a touchdown through the air with a single interception from Kirby Joseph. On the ground, they allowed 23 carries as a football team for 83 yards and a touchdown on the ground, with Kyren Williams getting a majority of those carries with 18 carries for 50 yards and one touchdown on the ground, averaging just 2.8 yards per carry. The Lions' run defense held one of the best running backs in the league to just a 2.8 yards per carry average and held the Rams as a football team to a pretty below average night as a rushing team. Now, through the secondary and through the passing attack, 50 attempts, almost 35 completions for 300 plus yards does not sound like a great day for the passing defense. But going back to last season, going back to the wild card round in the playoffs, Puka Nacua had well over half of that by himself in the wild card matchup. Matthew Stafford was, I think, very good in both matchups and had great statistics through both. But watching that game last night, a lot of Matthew Stafford's success and a lot of the passing yards didn't come through the air. Matthew Stafford's air yards last night was probably less than 200, and a majority of the big plays came after the catch. Of course, the big 60, 70-yard run after the catch by Tyler Johnson was massive in that game. Cooper Kupp having 15 receptions for 110 yards and the sole touchdown on the night was massive for the Rams offense. But overall, I didn't feel like the secondary was that big of a liability. Whereas last year in the playoffs, it seemed like every time Matthew Stafford would throw the ball, it was a 15 to 20-yard completion through the air with 30 to 40 yards added on after the catch. This year, that didn't seem to be the case. The pass rush seemed to get there quite a bit quicker. Matthew Stafford was forced to get rid of the ball a lot quicker, right? The Detroit Lions had 22 pressures on 50 dropbacks, nearly 50% of the time. Every other passing attempt, there was a pressure, and they have 12 quarterback hits as a team, meaning nearly a quarter of the time that Matthew Stafford had the ball in his hands, he was taking a shot from either Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, or a number of the Detroit Lions pass rushers on Sunday night. I thought the defense was much improved, and they did, at the end of the day, only allow 20 points for a great passing attack and a very, very talented offense. This was not a bad performance by the Detroit Lions, but I think the defense is going to get even better. Again, with the additions of DJ Reader and Ifeatu Melifonwu. Now, starting off with DJ Reader, he is a 9-year NFL veteran. 4 years in Houston and 4 years in Cincinnati before joining the Detroit Lions this offseason as a prized free agent acquisition. His 277 career tackles, 23 tackle for losses, 44 quarterback hits, and 9 quarterback sacks have led DJ Reader to be one of, if not the most underrated defensive linemen over the last decade of the NFL, as well as being one of the league's premier run stoppers for the better part of a decade. He is a great run stopper in the middle, a great nose tackle, and a key part of Cincinnati's success, especially on the defensive side of the ball over the last 4 seasons. Now, unfortunately, last season, DJ Reader's season ended prematurely. With a torn quad for the second time in his NFL career, DJ Reader was sidelined for the season and spent a majority of the offseason and the preseason recovering to get back on the field. Now, the benchmark for DJ Reader's return was always week 2. Dan Campbell always talked about week 2 for DJ Reader's return, always talked about that being the goal, and it seemed like he was potentially ahead of schedule. He was questionable going into Sunday night, and a lot of people believe that we could see number 98 officially make his debut. However, that unfortunately did not happen. The Detroit Lions felt like it was best for them to sit DJ Reader for Sunday night, let him heal up one more week before officially deploying him versus Tampa Bay, and that is, of course, exactly what happened. But once he gets on the field, we're going to see DJ Reader lined up next to Aleem McNeil, who's lined up next to Aiden Hutchinson, who's lined up across from Marcus Davenport, both of whom Hutchinson and Davenport had 4 quarterback hits on Sunday night. And that might be one of the best defensive lines in all of football when completely healthy and ready to play. And let's not forget about Ifeatu Melifonwu, the savior of the secondary last year. Arguably the most impressive player within the Detroit Lions secondary, a 2023 campaign that saw him play 17 games for the first time in his NFL career, start 6 of those games in which he had 33 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits, 8 passes defended, a forced fumble, and 2 interceptions. That would be a strong season for any safety, playing any number of games, but those numbers came from just a third, 6 games of the NFL season a year ago for Ifeatu Melifonwu. Now, going into the offseason, it was expected that Ifeatu would remain as the Lions starting safety. And while I do think he will have a massive role within the offense, the Lions also wanted to bring Brian Branch in and get him a larger role, and of course, still want to lean on Kirby Joseph as a potential player of the future. So, in a 3-safety set, Ifeatu Melifonwu will likely be the third safety of the 3, but I still think could see upwards of 50 to 60% of defensive snaps on any given night for the Detroit Lions defense, and certainly still have a massive role to play in that defense on any given Sunday. Now, with those 2 players returning, what does this defense look like? What does the defense change? And how does it affect not only those 2 players, the entire defense, but individuals within that defense? Well, of course, with DJ Reader returning, you're going to have DJ Reader next to Aleem McNeil, arguably the best run-stopping duo in the NFL amongst the defensive tackles, a great duo of 2 Pro Bowl caliber guys sitting next to each other on the interior, with, of course, Levi Onwuzurike and Mekhi Wingo both getting good reps last night in pass rush situations, and Kyle Pico, a player that is on the defensive line a player that is in the defensive line on the practice squad at the moment, but could potentially be called up later in the season, as last night he did play with the starters. He did have a quarterback hit, and I thought he played really well on the defensive line despite being a practice squad player. So when DJ Reader returns, the defensive line gets significantly deeper. Their run-stopping specialist is officially returned, and considering what the Detroit Lions did to one of the league's top running backs on Sunday night without DJ Reader, I can only imagine what they're going to be able to do as a run-stopping front with DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil both lined up in the interior, with, of course, Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone lined up right behind them. Within the secondary, I think Ifeatu Melifonwu slides in really well to that secondary and allows Brian Branch and Aleem McNeil to play a much more versatile role within the defense. Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and Brian Branch will all rotate and split snaps at the safety position, but in the absence of Ifeatu Melifonwu last night, there really wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for Brian Branch to play the slot cornerback position, a position in which, as a rookie, he received all-pro votes and was one of, if not the most impressive secondary members of that 2023 NFL draft. He had 3 interceptions, was a massive playmaker, and was one of the league's best slot defenders as just a rookie. Of course, this season, expanding his role, I think, is a good move for the Detroit Lions, but I don't think it has to be exclusively at safety. I do believe with the addition of Ifeatu Melifonwu, Brian Branch is actually affected the most. Brian Branch, of course, last week played a majority, if not all of his snaps as a deep safety, but played all of his snaps in 2023 as a slot cornerback. With the addition of Ifeatu Melifonwu back within this roster, I think that versatility is added back. I think it gives Brian Branch the opportunity to not only play the deep safety position, but also now play the slot position, in which I wouldn't say that Amik Robertson struggled last night. I thought he actually played quite well. But when you have a player receiving all pro votes as a rookie, you don't want to take that position away from that player. You don't want to take that playmaker out of that spot where he's making plays. So I think with an expanded role in a two safety set and maybe a base defense, Brian Branch will be the deep safety next to Kirby Joseph, but a nickel defense with multiple defensive backs on the field and potentially in three safety sets. You're going to see Ifeatu Melifonwu line up as either a box safety with Brian Branch as a deep guy, or you're going to see Ifeatu Melifonwu line up as the deep safety with Brian Branch lined up in the nickel, being at his best close to the line of scrimmage and able to make plays. Overall, I was very impressed with the Detroit Lions defense. I thought overall they played really well on Sunday night. They played versus a top 5 play caller in the NFL in Sean McVay, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL in Matthew Stafford, a top 10 wide receiver in Cooper Kupp, as well as a great wide receiver in Puka Nacua for the first half. They played a very good brand of football. The pass rush was better. The secondary was better. The run defense was still really good. And overall, I thought the defense played very well. Now in week 2, going against Tampa Bay, they're welcoming back their starting nose tackle as well as a big-time playmaker at the safety position. I think things are only going to get better for this defense throughout the season. As communication improves, as conditioning comes back, as they start to get within their groove, I think the defense is only going to get better. And even if it stays exactly where it was tonight, I still think the Lions are a true playoff contender, a true threat for the North, and a true Super Bowl contender. But with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. The Lions are expected to bring back 2 of their big starters and 2 of their big playmakers for week 2 as they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, we will have updates about that as the weekend gets a bit closer. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Let me know down in the comments below your opinions on the game last night, your opinions on the defense, your opinions on these returning players, and what their impacts may be. I'd be curious to hear your guys' side of the story. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. If you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please go down below and do so. It helps the channel out a ton. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.